It's about time I actually got around to talking about a proper fiction film, isn't it? It's the most commonly accepted proper art form out there besides literature. And so, of course, I select one of the films that is the most likely to make the YouTube censors go crazy and try to instantly shut me down. I mean, personally, I think I'm going easy on them. I've got plenty of other options in the library. Salo, a Serbian film, the Postman Pat movie. Just let me know, Mr. Mahan. I'm sure I've got something appropriate for all ages in the back. People love action. Spectacle, gunfights and punch-ups. To some, a guilty pleasure. To others, the only reason to go to the cinema is to see some killings.
How many killings?
And while I'm doing my opening narration posh voice, I should stress that even I am not so arrogant as to pretend I don't enjoy a good shootout. But carnage for carnage's sake rarely interests me, is what I have to say because I'm a YouTube film analyst. Something about Jean-Luc Godard or some shit. Listen. We all know that the best part of the zombie movie is the initial outbreak. That chaos, that confusion, people's loved ones becoming flesh-eating ghouls and attacking them right before their eyes. The further away you get from the first infection, the more boring your film tends to become. Yeah, humans are the real monsters. You said that back in the 50s, and I'm pretty sure the bloke I'm currently just having an argument with is a little bit less of a present danger than the fucking undead horde outside. And even if he is, I'm pretty sure he's only a danger because of the undead horde outside. They're a pretty important part of this whole deal, you see? But I begrudgingly have to admit that humans are the real monsters, because there isn't a growing horde of revenants trying to break down the door right now. Have you ever wondered what it's like to see the world through the eyes of an actual full-born nihilist who believes we're all one minor inconvenience away from picking up a shotgun and getting really creative with some internal body ragout? That's today's Body on the Slab, a film decried at the time for being a disgusting and depraved celebration of violent anarchy, interpreted as a tacit promotion of murder in all its forms. But I think anyone who's actually watched Natural Born Killers... Oh, that's the film we're talking about today. Open your textbooks to page 77. I'm sorry, but you will find that every class before you has already drawn penises all over it, and the head teacher has already had a go at me for stifling my students' creativity, so if you find any free space, go wild, I guess. I think anyone who's actually watched Natural Born Killers will attest that the film is actually about that very reaction. It's a film in conversation with film at large. And I actually think it goes a fair bit further beyond that too. So get in the car, bring your gun, and let's start this spree.
Now I'd go down on a lawman for a gallon of gas.
Alright, easy, they can't all be winners. Natural Born Killers is what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. In this case, the unstoppable force is Oliver Stone in the director's seat, and the immovable object is a Quentin Tarantino story. Oliver Stone, by the mid-1990s, had a decent cinematic pedigree. While his early screenwriting credits include big hitters like Midnight Express and Scarface, people really started paying attention to the name Stone when he came around to directing Platoon. Platoon netted Ollie a bunch of tasty Academy Awards, with his own personal experience in the Vietnam War clearly being used to stoke a lot of the fire that made the film so grisly and realistic, at least when compared to the more fantastical and out-there cohorts like Apocalypse Now or Full Metal Jacket. After Platoon, Stone continued to find a decent amount of success. Wall Street carved out a small slice of the public consciousness for itself and can be looked back on as a Wolf of Wall Street light at a significantly tighter runtime. His biopic on the JFK conspiracy was distinctly more influential. Hell, it's actually stated as influencing the public perception of the American government by the Assassination Review Board that actually looked into the shooting of John F. Kennedy. You can't get much more influential than that, except maybe the X-Files.
If this is monkey pee, I pee.
Stone frequently went back to his experience in Vietnam for his other films, such as Born on the 4th of July, Salvador and Heaven and Earth, but he could never quite recapture that Platoon magic in regard to his war films. This would lead the public to start shifting their perception of the director away from blood and bullets and more into the more highbrow political thrillers and biographies sphere. That was until 1994. Quentin Tarantino was a distinctly younger figure in film at the time, starting his career in the late 80s and only starting to turn heads in the early 90s with Reservoir Dogs, but that film alone was enough to put him on the map. Tarantino was a big breath of fresh air for Hollywood, bringing a scrappy, fast-talking, nigh B-movie-esque mentality to slick, big Hollywood productions. One big thing Quentin was known for was violence and swearing, quite at odds with the then perceived chasteness of Oliver Stone's work. To bring this relationship up to date, think Baldur's Gate versus Hollow Knight's Silk Song. In regards that Baldur's Gate was a big AAA production with a huge company behind it, while Hollow Knight Silksong had a bit of notoriety thanks to the original Hollow Knight, but they weren't like super AAA, and this analogy sucks. Before Tarantino even started directing, he was able to get a few scripts he wrote brought up and optioned into the Hollywood system, one of them being Natural Born Killers. Eventually, this script comes across Oliver Stone's desk, and he, alongside collaborators David Veloz and Richard Rotowski, start heavy rewrites to the point Tarantino gets bumped down to a mere story by credit. Initially, Tarantino seemed to take this quite well, wishing Stone all the best, but later Quentin appears to have soured rather radically on what became of his script. I don't think he should be too miffed by it, though. I mean, the same year Quentin pops out Pulp Fiction, which I'm told was something of a mild success. He has more than enough dollar bills to wipe his tears of anguish. Filming Natural Born Killers was something. Drugs seem to have been involved heavily. We got Robert Downey Jr. here long before Iron Man, literally waving around his heroin spoon during the behind-the-scenes documentary. Was he doing heroin? No, it was coke, wasn't it? You can do coke off a spoon, just don't keep the coke next to the sugar pot, otherwise your come-down cup of tea might not do its job properly. You can certainly feel that Easy Rider / Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas level of mania when you watch the film. Oh, that's your call to go and watch the film. Well, go on, you're going to need to watch it anyway to understand what I'm talking about. I got my DVD from CEX for £3. There's a bit of gunk on it, but that's fine. You're not going to eat it, are you? You're just going to watch it. It's probably not even blood.
Where the deer and the antelope play.
Natural Born Killers, at times, feels like a queasy mishmash of time and space, doesn't it? Sure, Mickey claims,
It's the 1990s, alright?
but the actual setting appears to be all over the place. Mallory's backstory flashback is in the style of a cheesy 50s sitcom. Warden McCluskey is dressed like he's trapped in the worst parts of the 1970s. And the fake Mickey and Mallory in the American Maniac segment are dressed like James Dean and a stereotypical Woodstock hippie chick, respectively. It's not really supposed to be a film set in a specific time. I like to think it's set in America, with a big capital A and a big exclamation point. By that, I mean the setting is a collective summation of an entire country, the amalgamated theory of forms concept of the USA. Or perhaps it's dark reflection if you're more of the Stars and Stripes Pledge of Allegiance should be taught in the kindergartens type of Yankee. So it makes sense that a significant portion of the first half of the film seems to directly hint at a connection to the Wild West. So there's the obvious. A lot of the first hour is set in the American desert zone. That Texas and its environs area, though there's an important scene transition that seems to indicate moving to Las Vegas, which is a bustling metropolis that's been built in the middle of an arid desert as an affront to God. When we see Mickey in the chain gang following his first arrest, all the guards are mounted on horseback with rifles, bringing to mind the image of a cowboy riding his steed, especially when Mickey escapes the prison by hijacking a horse and riding off into a tornado waving a shotgun. Alongside that, there's a frequent clip interspersed into the film that shows a negativized horse galloping across the plains. The first victims of the film, these down-home country boys, also feel like stereotypical cowpokes with their quarter-gallon hats, and the soundtrack features Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan alongside thrasher tracks from bands like Nine Inch Nails. But if you have cowboys, you've got to feature their ancient enemies, today known collectively as Native Americans, but Natural Born Killers uses the more emotionally charged term of Indians. We do get shots of horseback riding Native Americans in the visual flurry we get across the film, alongside other perhaps intentionally distracting footage like Hitler speeches and fucking King Ghidorah. More concretely, a major turning point of the film comes when Mickey and Mallory wind up in a hut with an old medicine man and his son. He's kind of the first figure in the entire film that doesn't instantly react with outright hostility to the slightest provocation, singling him out amongst the cast. Now, Mickey and Mallory do wind up killing him in a moment of drugged-out mania, but unlike the rest of the wanton murder we've seen, and will see, the duo actually show regret and even fear after this death. Later on, in the main prison section of the film, when asked what he regrets by Wayne Gale, the only thing Mickey seems to be able to think of is killing the Native American, and the death of this character is where the film really starts to turn against Mickey and Mallory until they escape right at the end. I think if we go back to my previous comment on Natural Born Killers being a film depicting capital A America, we could very roughly overlay this film on American history. Before the scene in the Indian hut, we're wild cowboys doing what we like across unclaimed territory. We can loot and shoot and people will praise us for it because these are unknown lands and we're putting the bullet to the godless heathens. Morality does exist, but only in cities where we can afford to be moral. We're here amongst the scorpions and we don't kill the good, only the evil, like corrupt lawmen or abusive fathers. But then, the death of the Native American happens, and now we start to learn that Mickey and Mallory haven't just been slaying the guilty. We were supposed to have a scene after their arrest showing their trial, which reveals Mickey and Mallory slaughtered some entirely innocent teens at a slumber party. This scene is taken out of the film, with Oliver Stone noting that it didn't fit the arc of the story as it indulged in pre-Indian murder Mickey and Mallory at a point they were supposed to be getting their comeuppance. This turnaround of fortune is supposed to be showing us how, historically, that demonisation and dehumanisation of the natives was eventually revealed to be the brutal colonisation it always was, rather than the God-commanded manifest destiny it had been promoted as being for many years. Hell, this scene is even foreshadowed much earlier on during the I Love Mallory segment. While Mallory's father is watching TV, he yells,
Kill a fucking Indian!
just before Mickey turns up to kill him. But if we're talking about what God wants, I think we should start talking about what
God wants peace, God wants war, God wants famine, God wants chain stores.
the second half of the film in the prison is supposed to be hell. I'm just going to state that plain and simple. After doing wrong, one must get punished, and there is nothing more punishing than going through pandemonium. That's the capital city of hell, don't you know? At least according to Milton. He would know. I mean, just look at Warden McCluskey. They've even styled his hair into horns. Wayne Gale is also equated to a demon, but a more comical version with obviously fake horns from a Halloween costume, like a false demon or a lesser demon, less threatening than the other monsters Mickey and Mallory come across. Take a look at Mallory's cell as well. This isn't a cell, this is a room you find in Silent Hill 3, abstract poetry on the wall and all. When the prison does go to hell, it's easy to lose your sense of direction. We get trapped in tableaus you'd see from Dante's Inferno. There's people getting their throats slit on an assembly line. There's men getting shoved into industrial ovens. I think that last one is literally something that pops up in Dante's Inferno. It's the heresy circle, if I remember correctly. You might be wondering, if I'm equating McCluskey and Gale to demons, then why did they get horribly eviscerated at the end, especially as I seem to be actually casting McCluskey as my Lucifer in this analogy? And if you're wondering that, then you don't know your scripture, do you? Satan is the king of hell, but being king of hell is a punishment. In Dante, Big Red is eternally tormented up to his waist in ice, chained to a wall. The thing is, Mickey and Mallory have been chased by hell long before getting into the prison. Mallory, for one, has the shadow of her father looming over her. Even after his death, we get terrifying images of Rodney Dangerfield's boggle eyes staring out through the flames. It's almost as if we're supposed to infer that the acts of evil conducted by Mallory are actually the fault of her dad. Mickey, on the other hand, has a similar ghoul haunting him. We get much less actual fleshing out of Mickey's backstory, but what we do know is that he was traumatised watching his father take his own life with a shotgun. Except his ghost of Rodney Dangerfield isn't his father staring at him, but rather an image of a headless man sitting in a chair. We get blasts of this a few times, and it can be quite hard to catch as the image is dark and flies by super fast, but the last time we see it, it looks like the man is lurching out of his seat. And if this is supposed to be Mickey's dad, then it could be representing how, just like Mallory, his father is coming for him, reaching out across the plane of death, just as responsible for Mickey's murderous actions. But there's something fucky going on here. When we get Mickey's flashbacks to his dad's death, his dad is in some sort of field. So how in God's name did he get from here to inside a house, sitting down on a chair and headless? This implies that the headless man is not something Mickey literally saw, if the fact it seems to be moving doesn't clue you into that already. I think it's likely that Mickey would frequently see his father sat in this chair when he was alive. He's conflated the two images and merged them into one, giving his father more life after his death, as he does technically still exist in the actions that Mickey undertakes. Natural Born Killers, as you could probably tell from the title, is actually talking about the nature of evil. By having both Mickey and Mallory's parents being almost supernaturally evil, we're given the suggestion that perhaps this duo was always fated to become the maniacal spree killers they are. Mickey brings up fate a lot, and he seems to have got it from his dad. But I think the film is actually trying to argue against it. Stone does not solely lay the blame of the creation of Mickey and Mallory on their parents, but rather the society around them. A spiteful, malicious system that by the 1990s, and thanks to the overwhelming reach of the media, has been turned into a lurid spectator sport. I mean, that's probably the main reason the big final prison riot takes place on the same date as the Super Bowl. They literally introduced a section of the film by dating it Game Day. This all leads me to a symbol, a big one. Something is following Mickey and Mallory across America, and it's not just the news cameras. Mickey and Mallory are associated heavily with snakes and serpents. Mickey has this great big tattoo of 2 entwined snakes in his chest, perhaps designed to imitate a heart, and this at least suggests snakes are pretty close to his heart. But you'll also notice that Eminem's wedding rings are incredibly tacky. They are also snakes. The second part of the sentence is way more important than the first part. When they are making their made-up vows, they slice the palms of their hands, press their palms together and let the drops of blood fall into the river far beneath them. We are then treated to a little Gerald Scarfe-esque animation that shows their blood turning into serpents as they mingle together in the water, which then start biting each other, which might be the serpents eating its own tail, or a Boros, a common symbol of infinity. So you see what I mean when I say Mickey and Mallory are supposed to be represented by snakes, and if we loop back to the religious angle, we can easily point to the most important snake in the Bible, the serpent that offers Eve the apple of knowledge that gets the first humans kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And it's Mickey who offers Mallory the chance to escape her abusive father, while we never know the steps that happen between traumatised child to inveterate murderer with Mickey. Perhaps this is supposed to be telling us that Mickey and Mallory are part of a deeper chain of evil, but then why is the world around them so corrupt and rotten as well? The copper chasing them, Scagnetti, just kills a prostitute before tackling Mickey and Mallory at the chemist, but his backstory has him seeing his mother gunned down in the Charles Whitman, Texas tower shooting. He's not caused by Mickey and Mallory. I mean, how much can we trust anybody here, really? Mallory did not live in a 1950s sitcom. This is clearly supposed to be exaggerated even inside the context of natural-born killers. Actually, I'm not even sure Mickey and Mallory's last name is Knox. Their blood ritual wedding is certainly not recognised by the Catholic or Protestant churches. Maybe it's Eastern Orthodoxy, I don't know what those guys are up to. The Virgin Mary's like, hey, listen, I just given birth to the Son of God, put a lot of work in, he's your problem now. Look, I put him in a bubble for ease of transport. Deceit is all in the wheelhouse of the Serpent of Eden. He's supposed to be like a proxy or a thrall of Satan, Prince of Lies. But, again, if Mickey and Mallory are snakes, surely they should be running this show. They shouldn't be getting cornered in a pharmacy and have to shoot their way out of Bentham's panopticon. You can actually spot the point where it all starts going wrong for the two. It's the death of the Native American medicine man. Killing him was not something they should have done, and you can tell, because all of a sudden the snakes turn against them. While escaping the shaman's hut, they blunder into a field of poisonous rattlesnakes and get pumped with huge amounts of deadly venom. These people have been shown to us to have serpents in their blood, but all of a sudden they are betrayed by these creatures. Perversely, this is the point where, at least Mickey, seems to almost become an anti-hero. In prison, he starts talking in a Charles Manson-style spiel, suggesting he's had more time to think about his actions. He's still the same brutal murderer, but now he's got a philosophy, which is basically becoming civilized. It's the difference between their filthy, barbarous savages and our noble, brave defenders of the just. Mallory doesn't get a speech justifying her actions. Instead, she gets confronted with another layer of abuse at the hands of Scagnetti, which further endears us, the audience, to her. This justifies her rampage as a campaign against a world that keeps trying to take advantage of her whenever it thinks she's let her guard down. This frames the duo's escape from the prison as an almost morally good thing. They're amongst monsters, a cruel, dismissive warden, a media that acts more like a pack of jackals, perverted lawmen and, well, just a pick-and-mix bag of general criminals and fellow murderers. Now they're not potentially slaughtering innocent people for whatever passes as innocent in this world. They may be monsters, but they're killing greater, more powerful monsters. And as they are now the hammer of the Lord swinging down at the scum of the earth, they get rewarded with a guardian angel. This character, Owen, is actually presented to be an angel, but in a deleted scene he claims to be from the fire, so perhaps he's more of like a guardian devil. I mean, demons are supposed to be fallen angels anyway, aren't they? But then angels are depicted as wielding flaming swords, and there's the burning bush, so Owen's comments are just vague enough that they could be about anything, and it's a deleted scene, so who knows. His actor does pop up right at the beginning of the film in the diner scene. He's easy to miss, and you've probably forgotten about him by the time he pops up in the prison, but here he just vanishes like a ghost. There's definitely something supernatural about Owen. When put onto paper, without the bright colours and the screaming, Natural Born Killers is about two individuals taking revenge on the world, going too far, getting rejected by hell, and then fighting their way out to freedom and light. But it wasn't always that way.
First time.
I've mentioned a deleted scene that featured Owen, and that scene is, in fact, an alternative ending. In the conventional version of the film, Mickey and Mallory escape the prison, put Wayne Gale out of his misery, and then head off into the sunset. They claim that they're stopping their campaign of blood and destruction, and the end credits even show us Mickey and Mallory in a camper van surrounded by kids, as if the world just forgave their mayhem and let them have the American dream as a reward for what they've done. But this wasn't the original ending. You'll notice in this one, Owen just seems to vanish in the same way he did back in the diner. He was with them when they escaped, but now Owen disappears without a word. This is because the originally shot ending had a scene after Gale's death where Owen is with Mickey and Mallory in the back of a van, and after a brief conversation where that footage of Mickey and Mallory as parents is shown as an idealised dream, they tell Owen that he doesn't factor into their future plans, and they plan on dropping him off somewhere. Owen doesn't take too kindly to being Pete bested, and so does what comes naturally to a born killer. This is a very different ending to what we get, with Mickey and Mallory becoming just another part of a chain of violence, rewarded as they deserve. It makes the whole prison escape theoric. And that may be why it was cut, for simply being unfulfilling, but due to the greater artistry of the work as a whole, I have my doubts something so mundane as an audience's reaction played into such a decision. Especially considering some of the other content that Stone could have cut if he was that concerned about the public's impression of his film. This second ending fundamentally subverts the ending we get. It's scot-free to paid in full. Oliver Stone could have had his violent criminal protagonists get what was coming to them, but in the editing suite, something told him to say no, even when that would probably give him a better time getting this whole thing past the censors. I think this change is important. Firstly, there's the fact this version exists in the first place. Perhaps it was a hangover from the Quentin Tarantino version of the script, where Natural Born Killers was a straighter cops and robbers story with a jaded, world-weary detective and not Jag Scagnetti. You see, the thing about a Western is that the bad guys are always supposed to lose. Sure, the black hats get to enact some pretty dastardly deeds, but the white hat is supposed to come along and blow them away and justice on the range is restored. But that might not have been as memorable. You have to remember that this was the 90s, and sure, there's always been films where the bad guys win, but major Hollywood productions made by Mr. JFK shouldn't let its murderers go unpunished. Listen to how Oliver Stone talks about his characters.
In the present version, Mickey and Mallory, after their sojourn in the desert when they murder the Indian shaman, seem to be influenced by this, especially Mallory. And in a sense, her behavior in the courtroom and the way they gratuitously kill Ashley Judd is a throwback to the earlier Mickey and Mallory, the desensitized ones on their killing spree. And I thought, wrong move.
He thinks that the shooting of the Native American medicine man has actually put some sort of genuine change into Mickey. The ending we get suggests a righteous crusade against evil, a reward for hardship. We may not agree with it, but some divine power has told its angel of vengeance to sheath his sword. I mean, isn't a happy ending what we all want? Ah, wonderful lovebirds getting a future of happily married bliss.
Anybody out there in Hollywood believe in kissing anymore?
Natural Born Killers is looking at you. Every now and then we get cuts to horrible demons, some of which are characters from other points in the movie, distorted and corrupted to perhaps show their true selves, and they're pointed straight at us. During the prison riot, we get cutaways to adverts for Coca-Cola. The end credits are introduced by a slew of news footage from other then recent atrocities, and when any character is posted up in a motel, the world outside shows TV footage, as if the entire world exists inside an idiot box of a man with attention deficit disorder, flipping through channels because he's bored of the bloodletting on BBC Two. It gives the events of the film a very ersatz feeling. Mickey and Mallory don't just travel from place to place on a soundstage in a stationary car and a green screen like an old Hollywood film. No, the green screen is filled with a collage of wild imagery evocative of their mental state, and at one point for a moment they're beset by a horde of barbarians that disappear as soon as they turn up. In one of the very first shots of the film, where Mickey is ordering food from the waitress at the diner, her response is mundane, but partway through responding, we get a different take of the same line cut into the footage in black and white.
Lime's great, but it's an acquired taste.
The second take seems a lot more flirtatious than the dry delivery of the first, and it's left up to us to decide whether the second take is Mickey's perception of the waitress's words contrasted with the truth, or whether this second take is actually how the waitress feels about the brooding stranger and the first take is her hiding it. The truth of that interaction doesn't matter. The point is that it's up to us to decide. Whichever one you land on changes how you feel about Mickey killing the waitress in cold blood later in the brawl. You could see her as some poor average employee who Mickey has assigned intent to through his mania. Or you could see a Mickey fangirl and potential Mallory rival getting what's coming to her. Or any other possible interpretation. Point is, Oliver Stone has made a point to give us two separate and mutually exclusive clues. This character obviously didn't say her sentence, then repeat it wholesale diegetically. If somebody is willingly giving you two clues when one would suffice, then the clue isn't the clue, it's the fact that there are two clues. Especially when one clue contradicts the other. It's the contradiction you are supposed to notice, not the content. I mean, sure, a good craftsman would put something in there to notice. There's no point in having empty space and it serves as a distraction if nothing else. But again, there wouldn't be such an obvious kink in the structure if it wasn't intentional. You are supposed to come to your own conclusions. Do Mickey and Mallory deserve their fate? Either of their fates. See, this film is not a closed circle, it's a conversation. A conversation with film at large and as a concept. A conversation with American history. A conversation with the gaping maw of the 24-hour news cycle. A conversation with you. It all adds up to one big summation, you see. Disparate moving parts of the same beast. Some parts feeding other parts. Some parts spitting out the rinds. Some parts doing both. It is not a pretty picture of this system by any means. There's a significant amount of hate and joy in violence that keeps it chugging along, but it's an analysis and overview of the system nonetheless. You can make an allegory for American history out of natural-born killers, certainly. An exploratory cowboy phase caused by fleeing persecution at home, going on to inflict that persecution onto a native populace, and then building a castle of rules and restrictions to contain an ever-swelling population that will inevitably collapse once the powder keg goes off. But you could also interpret a religious fable into the text. Two sinners, united in blood and selected by a great serpent, inflict an act of aggression so grave even they are briefly broken out of their violent, self-serving lifestyles, and this moment of weakness has them rejected by the corrupt forces of evil and leads them towards an opportunity to bring righteous retribution to tyrants, whoremongers and parasites. And likewise, you could probably divine a cowboys and Indians story, a retelling of the Bonnie and Clyde story, a simple and commanding condemnation of the media that glorifies the Mansons and the Geens and the Dharmas of this world. You could, and you can, and you will. I'm not stopping you. But there's a reason we're being served all these courses inside one pie crust. I think I'm losing my illusions. What are we talking about again? Dinner? I could do with a nice cool Coke. Or maybe I could eat a polar bear. Oliver Stone highlights all of these points and, through natural-born killers, claims they are all part of one grand interlocking system. Exaggerated? Yes, incredibly so. Our demons are purely metaphorical. I hope. But present. Very present. And you're part of it. You're complicit. You're even active in it. When being interviewed by Wayne Gale, Mickey Knox is asked why he kills, and he replies,
Shit, man. I'm a natural-born killer.
There's so much talk of fate, how what we see was predestined, predetermined, but is it? If we take these acts as inevitable acts of providence, we cannot change them. It's so easy to be part of that cycle, no matter how barbaric it may seem. And the world is built to be against you. But if you don't do something, then it's going to be your face on TV under that news headline, listed as a victim